Morning Raiders, this is Ezron. Welcome to my Bastion. It is the Drop Fever event for speed gear in the Dragon's Lair. So I figured I would take this opportunity to talk about dragon teams and optimizing them and how to spend as little time as possible farming. I think that we all recognize that this game requires a big time commitment. So anything you can do to speed up your runs really helps your in-game time and lets you do other things. So I'm going to walk through a couple of dragon teams that I used and suggest some champions and talk about the times that they produced in terms of runs. And before I get too far into the client and actually doing some runs, I'm going to show a few screenshots I took of older runs I had, just so you get an idea of champions that are available and the times they produce. So this is for me one of the first teams I built for doing Dragon 24. It's all relatively old school champions. Of course, this is after the Mashald buff. This is the good version of Mashald. And I'm a huge fan of Steel Skull. So really the idea is that, Tyrell is here for his aura and defense down. You have Steel Skull and Kael that really are there for the dragon and poisons. Mashald does AoE fear and leech, so helps with crowd controlling, especially that's important for the second wave with the two dark elves with block revive. If they hit you too hard, then that really messes up your run. And then Sile, I run her in a stun set for crowd control, heals, and revives. And so this was about a 6-minute run for me. I have another screenshot around that shows the same team doing just under 6 minutes, 5:43. So I think that's relatively representative of what a team like this can do. It's like I said, it's an old school team. Many of you might have these champions. Really, the only one that's hard to get is Mashald because he's a legendary. But even if you've had bad luck with pools, you might not have a Steel Skull or a Tyrell. I like him because of poisons on the A1. There's lots of substitutes for Tyrell. Really, anyone with AoE decreased defense would be good. Even Stagnite might be better because he includes decreased attack with his decreased defense, and it has it on a slower cooldown. But then after this team, I was lucky enough to pull a Eurogrim, and I integrated him into the team. And this, I can tell, is the pre-nerf Eurogrim because I got mine to 60 like a week before the nerf. And my initial thought was, he's got a speed aura, put him in the lead, and he can do more poisons than Steel Skull. In terms of time here, there was a barely noticeable increase according to this. It shaved between 20 and 30 seconds off my time with, a not fully leveled but relatively well built for my account Eurogrim compared to the Steel Skull. And then I did a little bit extra experimentation and found out that the run was generally better and more reliable with Tyrell in the lead compared to Eurogrim. I chalked that up to the extra defense, made people more survivable, rather than the extra speed. Like most of these champions on my account are in the, 190 to 220 speed range. So the extra 20% didn't matter as much as the extra defense. But overall, I will say you're still talking a 5.5-minute team, which is kind of slow if you're doing a lot of farming. So now I'm going to click back over into the game client and talk about the team I used until this week. And here we are in the Dragon's Lair stage 24, where I settled in farming, just because it's the most energy efficient way to get 6-star epics and legendaries. Here's the team I settled on. It has both Steel Skull and Eurogrim in preference to Kyle. I will say that this is the post-nerf Eurogrim. He's level 60, has full masteries, and compared to the other runs you saw, Sile now has full masteries, including War Master, which I don't think was the case, especially for the older runs. Little things like that do make a relatively big difference in just adding up damage over time to make your runs go faster. Now, I'm going to actually make this run and play it back at higher speed compressed and make a few comments about what works well and what doesn't work well for this team. And here we go with the time compressed run. Getting into the first wave isn't difficult. Really, the only issues here are if the Crimson Helm puts up Unkillable or the Spirit Host cleanses debuff slows things down, but this is, it typically takes about a minute when I'm not recording. Now, the second wave, there's a little bit of tricks involved in that both of the Lurias and the Spirit Host need to get controlled. Like you see here, if the Spirit Host doesn't get CC'd, she'll clear all your buffs, and that really slows the run down a lot. There's not a lot of chance of failure here unless both Lurias get off their block revive. And then once this team gets to the dragon, it really is in the bag. You rely a little bit on A1's proccing poison, which isn't necessarily a high percentage item, but it goes through and you get the dragon down without too much of a hassle. Now, the video capture software I use introduces a fair amount of lag and slowness into the system, but that on average, that's like a 3.5 to 4.5 minute team usually. There is kind of a long tail if the second wave doesn't get crowd controlled, but it's super reliable, and I've used this for many months. Basically, I've never pulled a poison explosion champ on my account, nor do I have royal guards to clear the waves. I do have a husk that I built recently, but he's not a lot of help on this, primarily because of affinities. And then so a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to pull a seer, and never having used her, but having seen other content creators make videos, I was super excited to get one and see how she works. And so my first attempt at a team was this. Now, it's not strictly a comparison because I also put in Lydia for drop defense and weaken as opposed to Tyrell. My initial thinking was, Tyrell's decreased defense is on a longer cooldown than Lydia's, so I needed just something that cycles like a lot faster. So I'm going to run through this real quick and talk about a little bit slower the good points and the bad points of a team like this. And I'm going to do it in real time and talk about a few things here. So starting the run, things are speed tuned relatively well, but not super, super tightly. Really, the goal of this was getting Lydia to go first or second, as well as in front of the seer. So once we get in here and get the first wave going, you'll see what works really well for this team and what doesn't work so well. And there we go. Like I said, my video recording software introduces a fair amount of slowness. So Lydia goes first, decrease defense and weaken. Now she's at like 340 or 350 accuracy. So you're only subject to a 3% failure chance. And if things go well without recording, that's like 7 or 8 seconds. Now, if one of Lydia's drop defense or weaken gets resisted by the 3%, this is a bit slower. But then the idea is then Sile has the AoE stuns, so she'll be able to keep most of the second wave under control while we wait for the cooldown on Seer's Karma Burn to reset. I had to make sure I had enough hit points on her that, she could maybe take a hit depending on who does or does not get crowd controlled here. And there you go. Now, decreased defense and weaken, you'll see on the Crimson Helm right there, the decreased defense was resisted. So I don't know if Seer's Karma Burn will get everyone, right? So that's one of the weird slow cases for this team. But overall, it is a good bit faster than the team was previously. We're at 1 minute and 20-ish seconds now. If it weren't recording, this would be like 35 or 40 seconds. And if the Crimson Helm gets a turn, the poison should kill her. If not, we'll just take her out with hopefully A1s there. And see, well, right, so Lydia used her A3 to put decreased defense and weaken down right before she dies, and this goes to the dragon. Not necessarily optimal, but this run is already slow from the perspective that it's being recorded. Sorry about that. That was my phone going off. Then once we get to the dragon, it's relatively the same as it was before. Seer does add when her Karma Burn goes off. That's like a 450,000 hit on the dragon. So helps burn it down fast. But I still think with this team, we spend more time on the second wave that I would like. If I could get the second wave done faster, we would get to the dragon faster, and overall the run would be almost tolerable to watch. Like right now it's fine for overnight farming, but I wouldn't want to do anything else other than that. There you'll see, Scorch went off and did kill Seer. It's not a giant deal because we've got Sile there to revive her, and that puts up a lot of buffs. I'm hoping that at this time Karma Burn is back up and we can get that done. But this is again the case of once you get to this point, the run is in the bag. It's just a matter of how long does it take. And when we are not recording, this is just about a 3-minute run. So compared to the last team, it's a fairly significant improvement. It's dropping 1.5 minutes off. In percentage terms, that's like 30 or 40%. So Seer by herself, I was super impressed with, given the random slow run chance in the 3% resist rate for Lydia's defense down and weaken. That really is, that and the second wave are the things that I was not or am not totally thrilled with for this team, but it is a significant improvement compared to just the standard A1 and poison team. And this run will be done in just a second. Karma Burn takes it out with a 397,000 hit point hit. And just to note here that even recording, this run was as fast or faster than the other run without recording. Still though, was looking for a little more out of this. Seer is amazing, and I'm super happy that I finally got her. And if anyone has her in your vault sitting unbuilt, fix that immediately. I can't really say how impactful she was for my account. So I got to looking through my vault and see who I had around, and now I got to one more champion that was an improvement here. I'm going to get rid of Steel Skull, who I didn't really want to do in the beginning because he's got poisons as well as a buff that feeds into Seer, but overall I found this to work better. And that's, I had a Renegade sitting around in my vault. Now the important thing about Renegade, for those of you who might not be familiar with her, is she has a skill that resets cooldowns. And mind you, this Renegade is level 50, not ascended. and is in like partially built gear. You know, stats for her 96%, that would be 100% crit rate. After I get masteries for 166% crit damage. Just the idea is trying to do a little bit more. Very low accuracy. Don't expect any of her debuffs to land. And then just trying to get enough hit points and defense for survivability. Like her defense is super, super low. You'll see that in the run here. But, you know, I don't have a Kymar, although it is a 2x 10s for Prince Kymar today. I'm going to try to pull one later. But this was my stopgap to see if I can make any other run improvements by using the champions I had. And I'm going to get that one started. Now, as we get started, you'll notice I did put Eurogrim back in the lead for the speed aura. That seems to be, you know, at least a useful aura that matters here, rather than resist when these waves don't do a whole lot in terms of debuffing. So everyone goes first with their big abilities as expected. Karma burn happens. Now, when not recording, that takes about 6 or 7 seconds. We're now into the second wave, which everyone goes for the Hyria just because of lower hit points. There's a little bit of risk here. If people do too much damage to Seer, but in general, I think we're going to be okay. All the cooldowns are reset. She Karma burns again. Bang. This is about 12 or 15 seconds when not recording, and then we're to the dragon. I do think this run could be a fair bit faster if Renegade were level 60. She would die less and attack more, and then Saya would spend less time and effort resurrecting her and could attack more as well as Lydia has no mastery. So, you know, getting her War Master would do a little bit of extra damage there and probably speed up the run. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this is going to turn out. We're at 113, and that's at recorded speed. I will say that this takes about between 1 minute and 30 and 2:15, depending on how things go. It's going to be a little bit slower there, just, you know, as the computer does more work, but, you know, not a giant deal. And there you'll see we had one death. Saya will bring Renegade back to life and not a big deal. And we'll continue just to plow through Dragon. Really, Eurogrim can't quite solo the Dragon. I don't have enough gear for that, but I think Eurogrim and Saya together could do it, even if everyone else happened to die, just in terms of they're survivable enough and relatively, you know, immune to dragon damage and just with Saya's passive. So this will get there in 1 second and make sure that everything in fact does go. There you go, 400k damage from Seer. And probably one more dragon turn and then maybe everyone else just finishing off. It is a little bit slow, like I said, because of recording, but we'll get there shortly. I think the bottom line is, you know, I had super, super high expectations of Seer. I will say those expectations largely came true, but what I don't think people really are clear about is to be super effective, she does need the cooldown resetter. So you could do it with Renegade. You might be able actually to do it with Painkeeper if you have a Painkeeper built for your unkillable team, or the cream of the crop for that is, you know, Prince Kymar, and there's a 2x 10x for him. So I'm going to go try to pull him later just to see, you know, if I can get lucky with that. Otherwise, I very well may build the Renegade to level 60 just to try to make things go faster. But overall, you know, super happy here. If anyone, you know, can get any benefit out of this and the champs I use, you know, to increase your dragon runtime, I guess decrease your time, increase your speed, that would be good. You know, please, you know, let me know how you did in this super speed drop event. Like I you know, haven't gotten a whole lot, but maybe I can get a few that roll well. Drop a like, subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and that lets me know that you want to see more of this. This is Ezra.